For today's video, we're going to be discussing the recent bill that is set to pretty much destroy loot boxes and pretty much free-to-play game design as we know it. And I'm going to share with you my thoughts on how I would fix loot boxes, which I guess would be kind of like an ironic twist for fans of the channel. For today's video, we're probably not going to be going to full screen game coverage because I don't really have footage of games that would be inherently built around loot boxes. Up there is Grim Dawn, and we'll probably switch to another ARPG at the halfway point. But the whole point about what's going on is that there is a recent bill that's being proposed right now about loot boxes. And as we said in the beginning part, if this goes through, it is set in its current form to just kill the free-to-play market overnight. What the bill is proposing is that it will make it illegal to design, publish, or release a game that has any kind of loot box microtransaction either aimed at or knowingly having minors play that game. And like I said, that will just end things completely. And while there are a lot of people, I'm sure, jumping for joy at the prospect of a world without loot boxes, it does raise some very big questions about not only the bill's scorched earth policy, but if there's a way to have ethical free-to-play design. Because the problem with the discussion about loot boxes, and by extension free-to-play gameplay, is that there are plenty of developers out there who do things on the up and up that this bill would affect. But the problem is that the bad apples are ruining it for everyone. From the mobile space with a lot of those free-to-play games, to of course AAA developers and publishers like EA, Activision, and so on. But the reason why I'm here, I guess, trying to defend loot boxes is a very interesting tangent that goes back to a topic from a few years ago with this idea of having game mechanics that are gender-coded. That only men would like a specific game or women would like their own specific game. And when I talked about that one, I brought up this idea that mechanics in of themselves are not inherently designed good or bad for a specific gender or preference, and it's how they're implemented that only determines their utility. And the same goes for loot boxes. When they work, they can be a very effective way to provide excitement to a player, and of course get money for the developer and the publisher. The problem though is that in their current implementation, or the ones that are most criticized or noted, it is very much designed against the player, whether it is by manipulating them to spend money or making the game worse if they don't purchase it. Not to mention the fact that many of these deals or loot box designs, again, are essentially like going up against the house in a casino. And as we all know, the house always wins. So, for the first part, I want to talk about the easy fixes, and then we'll get to the controversial stuff in a few minutes. So, on the easy side of things, the first one is very simple. From going forward, all loot boxes must display their percent chances. Meaning, when you go to click on a loot box or purchase it, it must tell you up front what is the chance of certain drops to happen. Whether it's a 20% chance, a 0.0000001% chance, anything like that. Now, that has been put into law in several countries, but here in the United States, that is still not a standard or part of the law itself. Another point is that loot box pricings, or microtransaction pricings in general, must remain fixed. There should not be any scaling based on the amount of money spent. There are plenty of free-to-play games, especially on the mobile side, that will artificially raise the costs of microtransactions depending on how much money that has been spent. The whole idea is that once a whale is hooked, you can keep raising that price up and up and up, and they'll keep spending it because, again, they're hooked on that game. We also see this with the idea of the VIP system, wherein you will earn specific perks and rewards depending on how much money you've spent lifetime in a game. And again, these systems are inherently designed to get people hooked and convince them to keep spending money. and they do not help the consumer in any way, shape, or form, and that's why they should be removed. Now, that's all well and good. The problem, though, is trying to make that happy medium between consumer and developers when it comes to loot box design. And again, one of the reasons that a lot of people are fine with loot boxes is that thrill of unlocking something new. And why many developers try to equate the whole idea of a loot pinata in ARPGs like what's up there to loot box design. But no, it doesn't work like that. The point about a loot box, and what has gotten a lot of people upset, is that loot boxes must be purchased, the player is buying an unknown value inside that box, and the loot box itself is designed to be a never-ending time sink. Or, I'm sorry, never-ending money sink. That's more like it. And those elements, especially when they're aimed at minors, has caused a lot of these discussions. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to take a quick Patreon supporter and sponsor break, refill my drink, and when we come back, I'm going to share with you some of the more controversial thoughts I have about how to fix loot boxes in general. And now for a quick thank you to our Patreon supporters and current Game Wisdom sponsors. If you would like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, link down below. Alright, and we're back. I switched the footage over to that side. Let me know which side you guys prefer. But when it comes to trying to fix loot boxes, the problem with the bill is that, like we said, it is a scorched earth policy. It leaves no room for good implementations of it. And like we said, it will kill the free-to-play market no matter what the game is, if it has any of these systems. So then that raises a very interesting question. How would we fix loot boxes to make everybody happy? And I have several ideas, and depending upon where you sit on the loot box whole controversy here, you're probably going to think I'm either too lax or way too damn restrictive. But here goes. So the first one, and this is a major one, so come and get a little close here. Let's zoom the camera in. And that is, I would remove premium currency from any free-to-play game. And I know what some of you are thinking, why is that such a big deal? The problem that I have with premium currency is that no matter what game that's in, it serves no value to the consumer whatsoever. It has always been an additional layer of complexity and obscures the costs of a lot of these content. It makes it a lot harder for people to understand just what exactly content is worth, and it has been a part of energy systems, pay or wait, loot box design, competitive advantages, you name it. A premium currency has been a part of that. The only times where I find premium currency of any form to be acceptable is if we're talking about games where it is kind of like a persistent layer. So stuff like Octageddon, Plants vs. Zombies, many roguelike designs, that kind of thing. But for games that are free to play or allow people to spend real money, there should only be one currency in a game, and that's it. Now, we're going to get worse from here, or more controversial. So the second point is that going forward, if a game has any kind of loot box content in it, that content should be available or unlockable through general play. There should be nothing put behind a permanent paywall. So in games like Team Fortress or Overwatch over there, what they've done is that as you play the game, you'll unlock your own free loot boxes, and that will give you rarity or different gear. The idea, of course, is that if you want to spend money, it is always available. But that is not the only way to get these goods. Many games will purposely lock cosmetic or special items or perks behind the paywall. And of course, that was considered okay because people said that because it's cosmetic, it has no effect on the game. But under my rules, it does, because people do like cosmetic items. They do like that level of personalization. And if it's in your game, it should be able to be unlocked through play. Whether play meaning X amount of hours a day or week, daily or weekly quests, or even just having an unlock for certain milestones in games. But again, the point is that there should never be anything that the only way for the player to unlock it has to be by spending real money. Now, if you thought that was crazy, here's my next point. Going forward, any item in your game that has a has a loot box related microtransaction, the player should also be allowed to buy that item of their choosing separate from everything else. It will always obviously be a higher cost that we can't get rid of. But if somebody wants one specific item, no matter what, they should be allowed to buy that. And I know what you're saying right now. That would upset loot box design. And that's the point. When I think about games like Team Fortress and how it managed to get away with all the crazy amount of items, they did it in several ways. One, there is no competitive advantage because everything was either a cosmetic or a side grade. The loot boxes themselves would drop randomly, or they would unlock items randomly just by playing the game. And then the Manco store allowed people to spend money to acquire that one item that they needed, no matter what it was. I think the only exception may have been like specific event unlock items only. But the idea was that if somebody valued time or money more, they had the option to play. If I don't want to spend 1 cent at all in your game, I will eventually get items I can use. But if I don't want to spend that time, if I just want that thing that I need right now, right at this moment, here's my credit card, take my money please, give me my item. And there's no percentage chance, there's no randomization here. If this item that I want is $2.99, then here's $2.99, give me my item. And like I said, that itself will probably cause a lot of people to be upset. But if you think that's bad, oh wait, we're just getting started. The other point regarding loot boxes that I would like to see going forward is that whenever the game gets updated, that content must also be integrated in the game as per the previous rules. Like we said, there are many games, especially as live service / games as a service has evolved, that will add in more content as it goes forward. And that stuff must be integrated into the basic game. Again, no locking it behind a loot box or anything like that. I had to stop the video for a second because I needed to think about this last one and how I would properly phrase it. But the final thing that I would do to fix loot boxes, and this is pretty much the mic drop, record scratch moment for a lot of these companies, is this. Going forward, anytime somebody makes a purchase on a loot box, they must always get something new of value. What that means, to put it simply, is that there must be a limit on the number of loot box purchases somebody can make to acquire all the content. And that right there is a very big deal when it comes to loot box design. As we've seen over the years, one of the more popular ways of developers having their cake and eat it too is the concept of milling. That is, whenever you acquire a duplicate of an item that you already have, you will earn a secondary and sometimes even a third resource that can be used to eventually get something that you want. And of course, the higher the rarity, the more expensive it is. It has been, again, a part of just about any microtransaction or loot box game, from Overwatch, Hearthstone, all the mobile free-to-play games, and so on. And again, the idea behind this is that it's a way of developers cheating consumers by saying, oh, even if you don't get anything in this loot box, you can eventually work your way towards something that you need or you want. Of course, as we all know, the issue with that is that the cost or the amount of resources needed to get that item is so prohibitively expensive that most people will never be able to afford that unless, of course, they just grind for hours and days on end. Under my system, what I'm implying is that if your game has, let's say, 600 cosmetic or 600 loot box related items, then if that person somehow buys 600 loot boxes, they should have everything in your game. There should come a point in any loot box or microtransaction based game that the player runs out of purchases. It should no longer be an endless money sink. And on one hand, it's going to completely upend a lot of mobile and free-to-play games. But again, the point is that your game should not be banking on somebody spending $5,000 to $10,000 a month for your game to be considered profitable and success. If you want to add more content, or if you want people to spend more money, then you gotta make that content worth it. You gotta give them new levels. You have to give them new cosmetics. But just making the player spend and spend and spend should not be allowed anymore. And there should be a limit. Now, again, whatever that limit may be, I'm going to say that should be a game-by-game basis, depending on how much legitimate content someone can purchase. And again, when we say legitimate, we're not referring to consumable items, competitive advantage-based items, anything that makes the game easier for them. We are talking about pure content or things that makes or enhances the game. And I think with those choices or those options I've laid out, that would do a whole lot to stem kind of the nastier side of loot box design, and would still allow developers to make use of the system and basically allow everyone hopefully to be happy. But with that said, though, I'm going to probably hurt myself to ask this, but what do you all think about the loot box law or my ideas in general? Let me know in the comments below, but thank you so much for watching this video. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. If you're looking for a book on design, my first title, 20 Essential Games to Study, is out now. It is available where most books are sold, and it comes in paper, hardcover, or digital copies. This is the perfect book for anyone interested in learning about game design, whether you are a student, enthusiast, or just a fan. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.